1 second.
मेरी आवाज आ रही है कि
थोड़ा सा ओके 5 4 3 3 2 go.
Good morning everyone and welcome to our Fireside chat on digital transformation and innovation in trade finance, bridging gaps in a fragmented global economy. We are joined by incredible voice shaping the space, Vidya, who brings in a large bank's perspective on innovation and compliance. Thank you Vidya for being here. Yeah, so let's dive right in. Vidya, the state of trade finance. Right. Trade finance has always been known as one of the most paper heavy and fragmented corners of banking. Vidya, from where you sit, what's the single biggest structural challenge that digital innovation can realistically solve today?
See, before we go into the solutions, what I also wanted to touch upon, we all know why trade is so fragmented and so paper dependent.
Yeah.
Primarily, one of the main reasons is the varying regulations across the world, and consequently, the hindrances in collaboration as well as the hindrances in innovation. That is one of the major obstacles. Secondly, interoperability. Many of the systems today which we have across the world, where we have seen solutions have been put, the challenges have been in interoperability as well as replicating this and picking up or taking scale. Well, we have a lot of POCs. So the resolution, the primary resolution, I would say there are two aspects. There is no single solution to it, but key driver for this is, one is digital innovation. It needs continue to happen.
Yeah.
And at the same time, changes in regulations. These are some of the very important features that would enable digital trade to happen. One of the key challenges again would be how to scale it up.
Yeah.
In this, the large banks and tech players can play a very good role, because it is the large players and the large banks who have the capability to transform the capability.
Yes.
So today this all needs larger investments and greater collaboration. So that would be my take.
Great. So that brings me to a mindset question, Vidya. Trade finance is often called the last frontier of digitization. So what mindset shift is needed across stakeholders, banks, regulators, fintechs, corporates, to really accelerate the adoption?
So in my view, the ecosystems play a very important role in addressing the gaps. And paving for seamless cross-border trade. Banks are trying to innovate. And also try to collaborate with platforms. In my view, independent platforms, they lack biases. So if banks invest on these kind of tech platforms, banks have biases. They will have their own challenges in understanding the customer perspective. And they would not want to see through the other person's. So independent platforms are the best solution to it. And at the same time, from a technology perspective, as I always said, the biggest challenge would be interoperability and adaptability.
Agree on that.
This is very important. So why digital is paper trade is still not paperless to the extent which we want today, is because of the fact that the interoperability and adaptability is still lacking. And also banks hold transactions close to their heart. So they don't want probably the other person to know what kind of thing. So this will help.
Great. So the next question, Vidya, regulation as an enabler. Right. Now we often see that regulations, our view is slow down the innovation. Yeah.
You are right.
But they can also enable it. Right. We have seen that. So what's one regulatory change that you could unlock exponential growth in trade finance?
Especially for a country like India, enabling digital trade acts, adopting UNCITRAL, bringing the MLETR models, this will help, because today India lacks a single legislation which would help. And in fact, there is some work happening on this front. Just to add, there is work happening on this front from IBA.
Okay.
They are working on digital trade enablement.
I see that, yeah.
So that is something which will help, and though it is at the preliminary stages, one of the very important aspects is that there is some work happened and large banks have got involved in this, and this will help probably moving. But legislation changes, the regulatory changes, and adoption of the digital standards will help.
Will help. So good one. So now coming to the collaboration beyond the buzz. So we hear a lot about bank and fintech partnerships. But what makes the partnership successful beyond the press release? We will see a lot of press releases coming. Yeah. And what pitfalls should be avoided in your view? Yeah.
True. See, one of the great things that we are seeing is that the partnerships can address.
Yeah.
The partnerships can address primarily bilateral financing. But today, even the challenge is that when you talk about scalability and scaling up of these solutions, who can help? In fact, the other two parties in the corner, the
Yeah.
corporates, in the four corner model, the corporates play a very important role in the way digital trade adoption.
Yes.
See, what we have seen even in the previous years is that the digital trade adoption has been driven by stakeholders but digital trade adoption has been driven by stakeholders which are large companies. So even when
Corporates,
the
yeah.
e-bill of ladings had picked up, a very important aspect was that in the cross-border trade, the corporates have driven many of the
Yes,
digital adoption.
yes.
So corporates play a very important role in this. And the biggest pitfall is that in the guise of scalability, what also needs to be seen is that regulatory breaches don't happen.
Okay, so well noted. So, the question related to the same, collaborations and all.
Right.
So, do you think shared utilities like trade networks or blockchain platforms are realistic, or will bilateral partnership dominate?
See, it's actually today, if you look at it, more of bilateral partnerships is what is going through, and bilateral partnerships have also successfully worked, but on the four corner model.
Yeah.
But a very important aspect is that partnerships can address to this to a great extent.
Great.
India also needs some of the large technology players to go international.
Okay.
This is something which we haven't seen. So there are fintechs which are working, especially even fintechs like Vinavi. But where we need to go is that we need to go more international to look at this. See, if we have to look at interoperability or if we have to look at adaptability of
Yeah.
these technologies, large fintech firms going outside India, establishing digital infrastructure, this would be a very critical. I feel that partnership between product and fintech companies also can.
Will
So
work.
this is something which has not happened to a great extent. Today,
Yes.
fintechs are innovating. Product companies, while I see that there is a bit of disjointed efforts which are happening between the product companies, are also trying to put some of the aspects of a fintech in them. But I feel the fintech product company innovation can also help a lot, because ultimately product companies drive a lot of this.
Yeah, I take that. I agree with you. Thanks. So coming on the very important aspect, SMEs, right, and the access to the working capital, trade finance. Yeah. So Vidya, let's talk SMEs now, right? We consider SMEs the backbone of the trade.
True.
But very often we see that most underserved sector
True.
in India.
True.
So how can fintech and banks, especially large bank like Axis Bank, collaboration change that over the next 3 or 5 years?
So in fact, SMEs, see, while across the world, if you see, there has been a gap in the trade financing model. Today, if you look at India, for SMEs, there is a good access to financing. Banks are pretty active in covering SMEs, especially considering priority sector lending obligations.
Yeah.
But where it lacks or where the improvement can happen is SMEs today do not have access to the right mode of financing. Today
Okay.
they get access to a cash credit overdraft or any of these other working capital solutions. But where they are not able to leverage is on how they do
Okay.
their capture their cash flows, what they work with the large corporates, how do they monetize this. In this, the banks, the
Okay.
fintechs and the platforms play a very important role, because especially on the supply chain side within India, which is more or less nothing but the trade which is to the which where you can lock the, or where you can trap the cash flows of these
Yes.
SMEs supplying to the large corporates. Fintechs can play a very active role. In fact, even in the GFF, we have seen unveiling of dynamic discounting
Yes.
solutions. We also have seen very successful models of factoring, reverse factoring, running on platforms, and also vendor financing and dealer financing models. So this will be a very important aspect as far as
Got
fintechs
it.
are concerned, and SMEs can leverage on this.
Yeah. Very heartening to hear that, Vidya. Thank you. I now jump on to the role of AI.
Correct.
Right. And yesterday we saw in the event, the GFF, that we saw AI is happening everywhere. So, where do you see the safest and most impactful application of AI in trade finance today?
AI is a great game changer, provided we are able to utilize the data, we are able to utilize the trends and the methods which have been done. Very importantly, AI can help a lot in decision making on the credit side.
Okay.
AI can help on fraud prevention and data mining and the analysis of data, how the patterns are there, what kind of products can be offered. This can be a great game changer. However, banks have to leverage this. Banks have to leverage this data. Banks have to know how to utilize this data properly. AI also can predict trends on compliance and AML. Today, especially on the cross-border trade, AI is helping a lot in predicting cross-border trends on AML and compliance. This can help a lot. I think we still are away to some extent on the Gen AI side, and from a financial sector, I don't know how quick we can move.
Okay.
But banks still have some amount of way to catch up on the AI side, but it will be a very big help for banks to look at the perspective on it. It will be a very important thing.
Very interesting to know that, Vidya. Thank you. Now, I'm just like on the same line on the blockchain and tokenization. Right. Now, I don't know, our view is that tokenization and blockchain have been hyped for years. What's different now?
Blockchain, I would rather say that I'm a person who believes that blockchain can still be a case where, blockchain has its own pitfalls, but blockchain is reliable, and at the same time, blockchain has proven that the transactions can be managed and transactions can be put in a very seamless manner. It has
Okay.
a bit,
Okay.
but tokenization to pick up in India.
Okay.
Again, one of the great challenges is the regulatory aspects which need to do. Primarily, India still has an evolving market for asset securitization and
Agree.
loan participation. Changes in the regulations will definitely help tokenization as a concept also. Tokenization definitely would help a lot on the secondary market participation, whereby liquidity for trade finance structures can deeply improve.
Okay.
And also what I feel that it will be interesting to watch initiatives like Bharat TradeNet and how do they evolve. We create a market, we create an infrastructure, and all these models can flow.
Okay. Taken point. So now let's talk about culture, risk, and the bank perspective. Right. So Vidya, from a large bank's point of view, I'm quoting your bank, Axis Bank here. How do you balance innovation and risk and compliance?
Right.
Are fintech partnerships becoming the new normal?
Right. So in domestic trade, yes.
Yeah.
Cross-border, it's still some way to go, because risk and compliance plays a very important role
Yes.
in the cross-border
Yes.
trade, and also in influencing the future spends in technology. While technology grows on the bank side, financial crime perpetrators are growing. They are having newer methods to
Getting smarter.
They are getting smarter.
Okay.
And the movement of money for financial crime and the proceeds which are moving out of these kind of trades are also significantly increasing. So what needs to be also done and where the investment needs to come is on the investment in tackling financial crime and tackling these kind of.
Okay.
But it would be very interesting to watch how fintechs can play a role in this, because fintechs are capable of especially the fintechs which are handling the financial crime related aspects. This would play a very important role, and AI can also play a very important.
Yeah. So I would say that both banks and fintechs need to stay.
Yes, they need.
Yeah, ahead of the financial
That's
crime. Great. So the same question, Vidya. And internally, do large banks like Axis Bank face cultural resistance to digital transformation? Do you see that happening?
No, there is no resistance in digital transformation. In fact, larger banks are leading the way in digital transformation. But the guiding factor will always be building up of scale and allocation of resources. So how do we prioritize? How do we look at certain aspects where, how do I prioritize my needs over customer needs?
Right.
What kind of product mix I'll give, and
Right.
how do I benchmark it to the competition?
Right.
That would always remain the key.
Got
But
it.
in the larger organizations, there is absolutely no resistance on this.
So it's very good to note that. So the next question, Vidya, is on embedded finance and ecosystem evolution. So now we see that with embedded finance and B2B platforms growing everywhere,
Right.
is trade finance moving closer to the point of only transactions? What do your view?
Embedded finance is very easy to implement in a domestic trade transaction, because today, once you know the kind of patterns, once you have the right linkages with vendors, it is very easy to implement. But on the cross-border side, again, as I said, regulatory hurdles plus the financial crime related aspects play a very important role.
Okay.
So embedded finance to become a success in the cross-border trade, there is still some way to go, but this can shorten the life cycle of the transactions to a great extent, because once you know the type of patterns and know the type of transactions, embedded finance can play a very good role in shortening the life cycle of the transaction.
Which is the need of the
Which is the need of the.
Absolutely, great. So what role finally will banks play as fintechs? I mean, it's a very question I'm excited to know from you. What role will banks play as fintechs, big techs? Because we see that even the corporates are innovating in the financial flow now these days.
So one very important aspect is banks have their own hurdles
Yeah.
in the innovation front, because fintechs do not have those hurdles. Banks have to work on certain regulatory aspects to innovate, but fintechs don't have that hurdle. It is very clear that banks and fintechs have to have, especially white labeling of solutions, all these kind of partnerships which banks and fintechs have.
Okay.
This is going to play a very important role. And also, as I said earlier, majority of the tax decisions of banks, fintechs are driven by corporates. The kind of transactions corporates do, this is what is driving banks.
I understand. I understand.
Financial investment.
Okay.
So technology investment will always be driven by the corporate requirements.
Okay.
So that would be one of the very key aspects.
Okay. So two more questions, Vidya. If you could remove interesting one rule in trade finance today to accelerate the digital adoption, what would it be?
So regulatory hurdles.
Yeah.
So what we need to understand is the world is changing at a pretty fast pace. As a country, we will also have to adapt to international standards. We need to look at technology. See, one great thing which had happened is the Digital Trade Act, which was passed in the UK last year.
Yes. Yes.
We more or less follow English law in many of the aspects. So it would be easier and it would be good if we are able to focus on regulatory hurdles and enable trade related. Digital trend in trade will improve only if the regulatory hurdles are.
Okay. And the final question, Vidya, it's a future, looking. And if we meet again at GFF 2030, say after 5 years, what's your vision for the trade finance?
I'm an optimist, but even though I'm an optimist, if we are able to digitize 50% of all cross-border trade transactions, considering the different countries, the different technologies. That would be a great achievement, because 50% of with that currently with the 3 trillion kind of digital trade which is happening, 2030 expected to grow significantly, notwithstanding tariff related, notwithstanding other. If you are able to digitize 50% of the trade transactions, when I am talking about digitization of trade transactions, I am specifically talking about cross-border financing, not the cross-border flows. Cross-border flows, more or less, they are becoming more seamless, and with the innovation MT to MX and investment, better investment in Swift, better investment in technologies, alternate funds transfer players coming in, the technology would improve significantly. But at the same time, what if you would have read probably Singapore a couple of days back?
Yes.
The cross-border transfer rates have actually slowed down, considering again there is a very huge emphasis on compliance.
Compliance.
So that would be only the guiding factor as far as cross-border. But digitization, about 50% of transactions will have a huge impact, and I hope that would be that's what we probably will want to look at, those kind of transactions.
Excellent. Beautifully put. Thank you, Vidya, for the clarity. It's clear that the future of trade finance isn't about one player leading, it's about everyone aligning with it.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our session. Thank you.
Thank you.